Welcome to Home Again. This podcast explores what changes inside you when you move to another country. And today I'm joined by Sarai, who moved from the United States to Chile. And Sarai, thank you for being here. And just before we begin, I just want to remind you that there's no pressure to have perfect answers in this space. This is simply a space to reflect on your story, your experience, all in your own words. So let's start at the very beginning. To help people just get a bit of a sense of who you are, could you introduce yourself in your own words?
Sure. My name is Sarai. I am a mother and a woman, an explorer, tenacious and unsubmissive at this point in my life.
Thank you. And you've taken on a rather big move recently,
Yes.
and that move has taken you to Chile. Can you tell us just a bit about that process?
Yes, this was one of my moves. I have been in Chile for about 14 years, back and forth. So I left so I could work in the United States. And I have left twice in the last 2 years. And um, being that I don't really feel at home in my own country any longer. So
Mm,
that's an entire thing.
it's and it's when I speak to people, there's a real mixture. Some who leave home just feeling there's a big part there that when they go back that they realize they miss something, and then there's people like you who speak and for various reasons just don't feel home anymore, and that again comes forward because of different things that are happening. I remember
Yes.
in the interactions that we had just prior to this, you mentioned that it was not a straightforward decision to move. What was happening in your life at the time that led to the move?
Oh, what wasn't happening in my life? I have two grown daughters, and they had decided to come to the United States. I have sons that did come back. But my daughter, who is 23, had a child here in South America and decided to come back to the US to to work for monetary reasons, because as anyone knows, when you live in another country, and my children have grown up the majority of their lives in South America, that sometimes you need to leave
Mm,
to work. That's a migrant experience, by the way.
that's right.
That's a migrant experience.
Yes.
And she was not able to take her baby to the US, not only because of what is going on with the immigration right now in the US. She was scared to take the baby there. But the baby, she was not
Yes.
able to get the baby's immigration papers because she had spent longer than 9 years in South America. So it was
Yes.
not an automatic situation.
It is quite an eye opener when you hear these things and you
Yep.
realize the things that pull families in various directions. And so that
Yeah.
undoubtedly had a huge impact on you and your family.
Yes, and I believe it is part of the one of the things that makes me not feel at home in the US anymore, because we have completely different experiences. So the majority of the people that I speak to when I go back, whether that be family or friends, they aren't able to put themselves in a situation like that. The majority of them, and I'm not saying everybody, because we have
Mm.
diversity in the States as well, but the majority of them have never experienced anything like that. It's easy being an
That's right.
expat, it's difficult being a migrant, and when you're an American with children that are Chilean, it's an entirely your life will never go back to being viewed as the same. My brain, I believe my brain has changed in the
Indeed.
14 years that I've been here.
And so, family and really family being able to be together, is that one of the draw cards of why you would find yourself being more Chilean than being able to be home in the US?
Yes. Yes. And also, there is an unwelcome atmosphere that sometimes you don't believe exists until you live it. So, what we're seeing right now,
Mm.
broadcast on many of our media outlets, just opens up a whole other different kind of wound and feeling.
That's right. And living it is undoubtedly a different experience to what we're experiencing from my side, for example, where we see it in the news, but it's sort of removed from us. So you
Yes.
live that every day and it becomes part
Yes.
of the family life structure. And I'm sure that also creates a huge level of uncertainty
Mhm.
for you and the broader family for day to day life, even though that you're living in Chile, which ironically is on the opposite end of the continent from where everything's taking place, but still affects you day to day. The move, the most recent one through to Chile, is that
Yes.
to be able to be with your children? Were there other factors involved that brought you there recently?
Well, as you speak about uncertainty, nothing is certain right now. So I
Mm.
have kind of made it my goal because of not only politically around the world is nothing certain at the moment. I have decided to sort of be in 2 places at once, to not have all of my eggs in one basket, to not be permanently in one
Yes,
area. If I have to work in the States and then come back to Chile, that's fine. I have relegated my life at this point in my life, in my 40s, I have decided that maybe I'm not going to live a life like everybody else. And
that's
possibly
right.
before I lived in some kind of bitterness about that. Now I've just
Mhm.
accepted it.
That's right.
That is
Mm.
what it is. It's there is no certainty in life. And those people that have lived their entire lives with a certain kind of certainty. I look at retirees in the United States who've been married for 40 years and everything else. My life is not that. And millions of
Yes.
people's lives around the world are not that.
It's not, and that's part of this podcast's purpose is to be able to show that people that are migrating, moving to different countries, all come with different contexts, and it's not always a rosy, happy picture. It
No.
sometimes comes with a lot of complication and a lot of emotion. And often
Yes.
people also feel alone in that. They also feel
Yes.
that they're the only ones experiencing it. But the reality is, probably majority of people in the world at this point are in some form of complicated migration story.
Absolutely.
And that helps just to be able to move into an aspect of moving around, which is all of the hidden aspects that we don't often think through, because there's the upfront things, the things like paperwork and visas and passports, but
Mhm.
all of the behind the scene things. So for example, the move you spoke about now, which your daughter struggles to be in one place because of the paperwork, but that has an emotional toll, which we often don't see.
Yes.
And so, one question I'd like to ask is: if this whole
Mhm.
process, what areas of your life have you felt yourself grieving that you didn't possibly expect you would grieve in? Things that are maybe missing, things that uh, look completely different to what you had hoped or expected.
Oh, that's a good question. That's an excellent question. Because I have a big family and, kids that went all over the United States to live and to work, I grieve because I'm a single woman. I
Mm.
grieve the ability to have the lifestyle that I so easily see people obtain by not having these same issues. And sometimes we take decisions in the past that we think are the best the best decision to take, and in the future, years in the future, we realize, well, maybe that wasn't the best. We're humans, so we have a very we're not predictable. We can't predict the future. Most of things are out of our hands. And actually, I'm not so much grieving now as I am thankful for the
Yes.
opportunity to see things differently and the ability to feel empathy and
Yes.
compassion. Apart like, at this point in my life, I can't even look at, people immigrating. I can never look at them with a racist thought in my mind ever again because I know that some of them have left behind everything they've ever loved and known to go into an unfamiliar experience to be treated
That's right.
badly or poorly, not knowing laws, not
Mm.
knowing
Yes.
culture, not knowing, shopping, budgeting. You really risk yourself when you go into another country and you're just living and you break a law that you don't even know exists. So, my empathy now is so much more than it was, I don't know, years ago.
That's right, and it's so helpful that you raise that because it's an important aspect for us to be aware of as you pick up and move to a new country, even if it's a country that speaks a familiar language and where people look like you, culture is different, and there might be
Oh,
subtle
so
things
much.
that you're not aware of that can change your experience of day-to-day life. and
Yes.
and so it's helpful that you flag that because it is a reality that if we're picking up and moving we need to be aware of, and part of that means that we end up feeling like outsiders, and outsiders in
Yes.
various places. You've already flagged that you feel an
Mhm.
outsider back home in the US. Is there ever a time that you've felt like an outsider in Chile?
Yes, just many times, many times. And no matter where you go, you'll always carry the formative years of your life with you.
Yes.
You can morph if you're a flexible person and grow and change, but you have to be a very flexible person to kind of change what your brain has been formed in when you go into another culture when you're older. Those are things that
That's
require
right.
work. Those are things that require work. So yes, I have felt like an outsider. Luckily, um, I was, I, I am pretty flexible. I can say that, and I've been blessed with some really excellent friends in Chile, and I try to surround myself with the things that bring the people, my tribe, that bring the people close to
Yes.
me that I feel good with. I have some amazing friends that I've met here from around the world, Chilean friends, from Bosnia, from Germany. And I live in like a shared artist community currently. And I'll still probably travel to the States. Like I said, my life is not going to be, it's not predictable at this point in time.
That's right.
So, um, as far as I feel really good right now, I'm surrounded by people that I love, and the voices outside of that have really I'm also empathetic about the people that can't understand where I'm coming from. So, if they haven't been through that, I understand that maybe they will judge me, they will talk, but I have to let it go. I cannot let it
Yes.
enter into my space right now because that on top of everything else that's going on it will just destroy me. So,
That's
I
right.
cannot yeah, I can't let that, come in and take over, you know?
And again, one of those hidden aspects is this r- reality for being in a new country and uh, the hidden truths of that isolation that hits, and you don't
Yeah,
know language if you in a country like Chile coming from an English
yeah,
context, or you don't have that friendship base, and what you've
right.
mentioned is one of those keys is being able to form that community, and that's what helps you to slide back into feeling like you belong and have that place.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and it's it does make a big difference. I know for myself as well as I've adjusted, that community is what makes a difference.
Yes,
Uh,
it does.
is Sarah, is there ever a point at which you questioned your decision to stay?
Yeah.
You want to
Many
share a bit
times.
about that?
Many times. When you I lived in Valparaiso for a while. I also lived in Puente Alto. If you know anything about Chile, you know those very impoverished areas.
Okay.
It's yeah, it's I lived on a Chilean salary by myself. And I
Wow.
had a and justice wasn't in my favor when I left my ex-husband. This was years ago. So I was in a very
Yes.
scary position. I would have to say that I did question, my sanity at one point. I'm like,
Yes.
"What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Am I crazy? I'm living on a Chilean wage, a Chilean salary in an unfamiliar country." And I have to say I thank my parents for raising me with a really an attitude of, "Yeah, I'm not gonna surrender." That would mean that would
Yes.
mean I had failed. So,
That's right.
I went back to my country and I worked, and all I wanted to do was return to Chile. Given
Okay.
the poverty and the area I was in, I still found my niche and loved it. I have a few excellent friends in the US also, but my friend group, I really did cut down
Yes.
because it really is hard to find people that are able to kind of understand situations. And sometimes when you're in a situation, you're only given a certain set of decisions that nobody else sees, but they'll absolutely judge the decisions you took without living
That's
it.
right.
And I have learned to
Yes.
just let that stuff go at this point in my life. Because I can't be everybody, I can't be everything for everybody. That's impossible. I lose who I am at that point, and I don't exist any longer.
That's right. And that's, I think, is an important thing for people that are listening to hold on to. You cannot be that one person for everybody. You lose
No.
yourself in the middle of that,
Yes.
which helps us actually move into the question of identity and spirituality, because often
Yes.
in these moves, our identity or spirituality all begins to shift as well. And I'd like to
Mhm.
talk a bit about what changed inside you. What parts of you had to change in order to adapt to new life?
So there's an interesting phenomenon that happened within my brain, and I could be very well off that I noticed. And I noticed when they talk about sin in different cultures, and I noticed that that sin sometimes is based on necessity or your lack of necessity. So I
Okay,
looked at
yes.
myself in a position of poverty. And I looked at people around me and what they were doing because of their poverty. And then I looked at the abundance that I saw in my own country and their lack of necessity or need and what they were doing. And I thought to
Yes.
myself, wow, there are really some psychopaths in this world because I know for a fact that some of the people I know in a position in poverty in another country would not choose to do the things they would do on survival
That's right.
if they had the opportunity. So my
Mm.
situation on spirituality changed completely. And
I can
also,
imagine.
yes, and also my view on God or also morphed. I
Yes.
questioned my entire life, my entire
Yes.
upbringing, my entire upbringing. And I was like, I thought, none of these people speaking with the spiritual authority wherever you go in a country can
Yes.
possibly speak until they have experienced certain things. I can't trust them. So
Yes.
there's millions of people around the world, millions of cultures, millions of things happening outside of our existence There are these little lives and little stories happening all over the entire world, and we see only what we see. So I
Yes.
thought, wow, what arrogance have we to speak on anything or anybody else's life aside from our own? I have been humbled, completely
Yes.
humbled on like on the floor, humbled and crying. And in that moment, I was like, you know, it's a lot easier to keep my mouth shut than to speak on things. But I also realized that sometimes you need to speak on things so people can see things from a different point of view. So I don't know. Right
Yes.
now, I'm just still growing and learning, but incredibly thankful. Sometimes I'll go back and forth between thankful and
Mm.
bitter and angry
Yes.
and thankful and back again. And oh, it's always a wrestling match with myself.
Yes, this big tug of war going on
Yeah,
inside.
it's a big tug of war going on inside, but more than anything, I'm thankful that I get to experience this.
Yes, indeed. And so, was there ever a sense of identity change within you in ways that you didn't expect?
Yes. Yeah, yes. What identity? I just concluded that I need to come home to myself and be myself
Yes.
no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, because
Mm.
that's that's all I have.
And
That's it.
undoubtedly, there were big shifts because as a mother, there would have been changes, just
Yes.
as you related in social circles there. So that it is a whole transformation.
I try to keep my kids out of everything because they all have their own experience. A
Yes.
couple of my kids really suffered here, and I can't
Mm.
speak for them. And, like my daughter, she is going through some for sure, some very, very, very
Yes.
difficult times right now. Um,
Mm.
my sons who went to the States, they're doing well working because they've seen another reality. So I'm thankful for
Yes.
that too. However, they're all different kids and they're all adults now, but they have a different experience than everybody else, and I can't speak for them. It
That's right.
They need to come home to themselves, to their selves, and they need to speak from their experiences.
Yes. And as you've just been sharing, it really speaks about this complete shift that a move
Mhm.
like this creates. It shifts in your beliefs, in your sense of life as a whole, just as you relate to the world
Yes.
around you.
Mhm.
Would you say that there are things that matter more to you now than they did before? Things that maybe fell away completely and new things that have taken preference in your life and importance?
Yes. My service to what I would say humanity in general,
Yes.
I don't need what I see other people needing. I see this desire
Mm,
for big cars, more stuff, shopping. That's great. I have worked with some of the children in Valparaiso.
mm.
Oh, I used to work for in a one of my friend's companies, and there were some little kids that would come in. It was a like an arcade situation,
Yes.
and they would come in with their grandparents or parents. And some of their grandparents or parents didn't read. So these children would be doing the thing like different things for them. And for me, a gringa in Valparaiso or Chile is like a big, oh my God, she's a gringa, whatever. But I
Okay.
thoroughly, thoroughly, thoroughly enjoy spending my time with the children here. Um,
Yes.
that's probably one of my favorite things to do, working with them. Ooh, sorry.
No problem at all. Take your time.
Um, and some of the kindness that I've experienced here is cannot be replicated. Also, some of the cruelty that I've
Yeah,
experienced here cannot be replicated. So there's these 2 incredible extremes, and you would be amazed to see some of the horrible situations that some of these
mm,
kids live through or in, and
that's
just
right.
very unkind, unloving homes due to poverty, and there is obviously years and generations of cruelty in Chile that need to be undone. Um,
That's right.
there's, so many generations of work. So the things that I valued before, I just don't value.
Yeah. It's amazing how these shifts happen when suddenly the blinkers of the comfortable world context that we've grown up in are removed, and the reality that majority of the world lives in is made visible to us, and it just
Yes.
changes perspective of the world for you.
Yeah, it really does.
And you work with obviously the most vulnerable of those, as you speak about being able to interact with the children, and they are the ones that affect and see the effects of poverty, of the brokenness of society firsthand
Yeah.
and feel it the worst. And that
Yeah.
is, it shakes a person to the core.
Yep.
So you've picked up on relationships a few times already, and I'd like to just speak about relationships a bit. How did relationships? How were they affected with this move? You've already mentioned some changed in the U.S. Could you speak just about how that relocation affected the closest relationships?
Yeah, so I think it kind of sifted out, what needed to be sifted out and brought closer what needed to be brought closer. Um I created relationships with some members of my family that I never had before that were very unlikely relationships that were made stronger because of everything that's happened. And also it pushed away certain people because they weren't able to see outside of the box that they had created for their life and the box that they wanted me to live in. Um, so it's interesting because it opened doors and closed doors to old relationships, opened doors to new relationships. And there have been a few people that have been with me on my journey for years, and those people
Yeah,
are like gold or diamonds.
yes.
There's really special things in life, and those relationships are very, very important.
And just that sifting that happens in a
Yeah,
relocation like this really shows you who those are that you can rely on. But also, I think part of what it does for people is it gives a new idea of your inner strength, because it changes relationships to the point that you
yeah,
need to know how you can stand firm to be able to be
yeah,
healthy in relationships. And it
yeah.
sounds like that was a process for you as well.
Yes, and I think during that too, you always come to a road, I don't know if you've experienced this, where you have a choice to give up or keep going, and you have a choice to be faithful to yourself or to try to be something for somebody else. And I realized over all these years that once you aren't faithful to yourself, you betray yourself, you become something for somebody else, and it hurts you in the long run. It really does damage you. So you aren't living your authenticity, and there's a moment when you choose that you can give up, or despite all of the unknown around you, you can choose to keep going and know what to do for yourself. And that moment, I think, is a deciding factor in so many people's lives. And that comes with addictions, with when you are at the lowest point,
Mhm.
you get to still make a decision.
Yes.
That is the freedom that we have. That is the freedom that we have as human beings. We may not choose where we're born, what family we're born into, what area we're born into, but we always have a decision to be true to what we know is to keep going, to continue on, and do what is right in those situations. Some of those situations are relative, but we get a
Yes.
choice, and I think that choice is freedom.
You've mentioned that Chile feels home, like you are Chilean, that is where you are.
Yeah.
When did you first feel that sense of belonging?
Um, I think when I didn't have to work for approval, it became more of a home for me when I was accepted as I was, and all of a sudden I was enough like that.
Yes.
And that's when I wanted funny enough, that's actually when I wanted to work on self-improvement, was
Oh,
when I
yes?
was yeah, accepted as I was, and I found, like, my home community, the ocean for me is huge. I have to be by a body of water. I don't
Okay.
feel yeah, I don't feel really good not being by a body of
Yes.
water. I like that feeling, either a river, lake, ocean. So I
Mm.
have the ocean right here, and I surf, and that is also part of something I feel very at home in.
Part of the process is, I think, initially when you arrive in a new place, there's a lot of proving that you
Yeah.
deserve to
Mm,
be there. Then
yes.
initially,
Oh,
it's this
yeah.
regularly again you're needing to tell authorities you've got X, Y, and Z in place. This is why you can be there, and
Yes.
your life feels like you're living it to prove your existence. And
Yes.
so, what it sounds like is when you came out of that and you started to find you didn't need to prove who you were, why you belonged. You didn't have to show anything to anyone other than who you are. That's when belonging became real for you.
Yes, that is when belonging
Mm.
became real for me. And everybody that didn't accept that, it just they kind of fell by the wayside, and that's
Yeah.
okay, that's part of life. And with all the compassion and all the love in the world, I was like, "Okay," it just accepted it. But also,
Yes.
so many interesting and wonderful people have been brought into my life. It's amazing.
Yes.
So, there's always that in and out.
And if you had to describe it, who are you now that you were not before?
Like I said before, I always thought I was right about certain things. I know I'm very flawed in a lot of things. I can never be right about anybody because I'm not living in their body and I'm not living in their experience. And um, I have a lot more empathy than I did years ago, a lot more compassion. Um, I also have I in the sense that I have less patience for shenanigans too, because I do know when people
Yes.
are getting away with, stupidity, and I'm not okay with that either, because I realize that, when certain things are accepted, it creates a culture, and that culture that you create,
Yes.
creates future generations, and those future generations make up the world that you live in. So
That's right.
we're not talking about culture as far as skin color go or hairstyles or clothing, no. We're talking about human behavior.
And so, what it sounds like is you had a gradual growing of self trust in
Yeah.
your own ability and who you are as a person through
Oh,
this
yeah.
process. And that is a valuable and, I think, a life altering
Yeah.
process for anyone to undergo. And it's one of those aspects of changing country contexts and being uprooted that becomes a degree of blessing in our lives because
Yep.
that self trust is invaluable.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, part of the work that I do with Bravely Me is to be able to help people build their life stories, to look where they've come from, to look where they're going. And so, if you were to think about everything that you've lived through to this point, and you looked at this chapter of your life, what title would you give this chapter?
So I would say this chapter is dissident resonance and rebellious existence. Because I decided to exist outside of what people wanted to create for me and outside of the preconceived ideas that are
That's right. And it's a great title. I mean, because that's so often what we have to do, isn't it? We need to step out of what is expected, what you think the norm would be,
right.
because it's not going to be that. And so it's
No.
stepping aside. It's being something different. And
Right.
that sums up that perfectly. As we start wrapping up, if you had to leave people listening with one key thought, one encouragement, uh, one word of advice, what would that be that you'd want to share?
Looking at what's going on currently in the world, when we think that a hard stance or law and order is going to fix the situation that we ourselves got ourselves into, cruelty never fixes anything. I have seen it. Cruelty never fixes anything. Maybe resistance, um, just being empathetic and compassion is resistance in this day and age that we're living in.
And that was Sarai. Sarai, thank you for sharing your story so openly. I've really appreciated your honesty and the way that you've just reflected this experience. And if you're listening to this and something in this conversation resonated with you, you are not alone in that. These experiences are often quieter than people expect, but they shape us in lasting ways. And Home Again is part of Bravely Me, a practice supporting people through life's transitions, identity shifts, and relationship change. If you'd like to explore your own experience more deeply, you can find out more at Bravely Me. And so thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.